ever feel like you're like drowning in a sea of tech? Especially when it comes to Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're going deep, diving deep on the Apple ecosystem. What it is, why it even matters, and maybe even why the Department of Justice is a little riled up about it.
Yeah, and you know what's so fascinating about this whole thing?
What's that?
An ecosystem in this context, it isn't something you can like hold in your hand,
Right.
right? It's all about how your devices and your software, the services, they all like connect together
Yeah.
to create this seamless experience. Think of it like a perfectly choreographed dance.
Okay.
But instead of dancers, you've got your iPhone talking to your MacBook, talking to your Apple Watch.
Yeah. It's like magic, but with more ones and zeros, right?
Exactly.
We've got 3 great articles
Okay.
to unpack, each one kind of diving into this whole ecosystem from different angles. Like a tech journeyman calls it an invisible product. You don't buy the ecosystem,
Yeah.
you buy into it.
You buy into it. Yeah, and that's where this whole concept of lock-in comes into play. It's something that understanding the Apple ecosystem really dives into, and it's fascinating because it can be a blessing and a curse, this lock-in.
Okay, so lock-in, hit me with it. Like what's good and what's potentially not so good.
Okay, so imagine this, right? You are on your iPhone, just scrolling through a website, maybe for like a new bike rack for your car,
Okay.
right? And you want to show it to your partner, but later on a bigger screen. So you're like, okay, with a few taps, you AirDrop it to your MacBook, bam, it's there waiting for you.
Yeah.
No emailing yourself links, no digging through browsing history. It's that convenience,
Right.
that smooth flow between devices. That's the upside.
Okay. I can see the appeal there.
Yeah.
But what's the catch? Because the article, the Apple ecosystem, is it really that good? Seems to kind of hint at a downside here.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the potential downside is once you're deeply embedded in this ecosystem, switching to a different platform,
Yeah.
like say Android.
Right.
It can feel like you're like uprooting your digital life.
Yeah.
You might lose access to some features, face some compatibility issues. You might have to relearn entire new systems. It's almost like it's like being fluent in a language, right?
Yeah.
Switching can be done,
Right.
but it takes effort,
Sure.
and there might be a period of adjustment there.
Yeah, it's like that moment when you realize you can't AirDrop something to your friend who has an Android.
Exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's dive into some of the key features that make this ecosystem tick, and let's start with AirDrop since we're already on the topic. So AirDrop, it's like telepathy, but for files.
Yeah.
Between Apple devices.
Right.
But what's the tech behind it? Is it just Bluetooth in disguise or something?
It's actually a bit more sophisticated than just Bluetooth. It uses a combo of both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct to kind of create this peer-to-peer network directly between the devices.
Okay.
And that's how that allows for much faster transfer speeds than traditional Bluetooth. And you don't need an internet connection, which is pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
So it's like having a dedicated high-speed lane just for your Apple devices to talk to each other.
Ah, okay. So that's how they make those big file transfers feel like instantaneous.
Exactly.
But this whole ecosystem goes way beyond just sending files back and forth, right?
Right.
Article 1 talks about Apple Watch integration.
Yes.
And it's not just about, checking your notifications on your wrist.
Exactly. The Apple Watch is like a prime example of how deep this ecosystem can go.
Okay.
So, like, imagine you're about to give a presentation, right?
Yeah.
With your Apple Watch, you can control your slides, you can glance at your speaker notes, you can even use the watch's microphone to advance the slides, like with a tap on your wrist.
Wow.
So it's really about creating this network of devices that sort of anticipate your needs,
Right.
and work together seamlessly.
So it's like having a secret control panel on your
That's
wrist.
pretty much.
And the Apple ecosystem, is it really that good? Highlights another cool feature called Sidecar.
Right.
They were talking about how you can use your iPad as like a second display for your Mac.
Right.
Which on its own, that sounds pretty useful.
Yeah, and it is. But where Sidecar really, I think, finds its stride is when you add in the Apple Pencil support. And this is where it opens up a ton of possibilities for, artists, designers, anyone who likes to take handwritten notes.
Yeah.
Imagine like you're sketching on your iPad with the Apple Pencil.
Okay.
And those strokes, they're appearing instantly in your design software on your Mac.
Wow.
It's like having a digital drafting table.
Yeah.
That's just like seamlessly integrated.
Okay, that's pretty slick. And this whole integration thing, it extends beyond just the hardware too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Article 2 calls iCloud the glue
Right.
that holds this whole thing together. What makes this cloud service so essential to the Apple experience?
So think of iCloud as like the invisible threads
Okay.
that connect all of your digital life across all of your Apple devices.
Oh.
It's more than just cloud storage, though.
Okay.
Although that is a big part of it. It syncs your photos, your documents, your contacts, calendars, even app purchases across all your devices.
Wow.
So, if you take a picture on your iPhone, bam, it's instantly accessible on your iPad, your MacBook, even your Apple TV.
So it's all about keeping your data constantly in sync.
Exactly.
No matter which device you're using.
Yeah. And let's not forget the security aspect too, which Apple really push that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've built a pretty strong reputation, I think, for prioritizing user privacy, data security, that kind of thing.
Right.
All your information stored in iCloud, it's encrypted.
Yes.
Both in transit and at rest. Right.
Because it's protected from unauthorized access.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a key part of Apple's whole identity.
Yeah.
And why a lot of people, kind of gravitate toward their products.
Yeah.
It's interesting there because this control over data is also at the center of that Department of Justice lawsuit that was mentioned in Tech Journeyman. What's the like the main thrust of their argument?
Well, essentially they're arguing that Apple's tight control over its ecosystem, including iCloud, the App Store,
Right.
that it stifles competition.
Okay.
And it could be considered, anti-competitive behavior. They're basically worried that Apple's whole walled garden approach gives them too much power over developers,
Right.
and it limits consumer choice.
So it's this balance
Of providing that seamless experience, but also making sure that there's a level playing field
exactly
for everybody else.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Speaking of the future, Article 1 kind of dropped this big development, Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
AI on every device seems to be like the next big thing.
Yeah.
But what makes Apple's approach here different?
Yeah.
From what we're seeing from other companies like a Google, a Microsoft, what are they doing that's different? So Apple Intelligence AI on every device, that's a pretty bold statement. But what is it about their approach that makes it stand out? What are they doing differently?
Well, it really comes down to where the AI magic is actually happening.
Okay.
So while you've got other tech giants out there, they're really reliant on the cloud.
Right. For processing all this data, Apple's focusing on keeping as much of that computation as possible on your actual device.
Okay.
So that means when you're using, an AI-powered feature on your iPhone or your Mac, a lot of the heavy lifting is happening locally.
Okay.
It's not sending all your data up to a remote server.
So that sounds like it could be a win for speed and efficiency.
Right.
But what about the privacy issue? Because isn't that like a major concern when it comes to AI?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's another area where Apple's on-device processing gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because by minimizing how much data they actually have to send to the cloud,
Yeah.
they're really cutting down on the risks of your information being, out there being compromised.
Right.
It's almost like like having a personal AI assistant, but it works offline.
Okay.
And it's keeping all your data safe and secure.
That makes sense. So it's not just about the AI, it's about where that AI is actually happening.
Exactly.
And what that means for you and me, for our privacy. But what does all this mean for the future of the Apple ecosystem as a whole?
Right.
I mean, is this going to make it even harder to break free from their walled garden?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're hitting on a really key question there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, on the one hand, you could definitely argue that this approach, it strengthens Apple's control over everything, over the ecosystem. They're basically saying, look, we can give you this super private, super efficient AI experience, but we can do it without having to rely on the same cloud infrastructure that everybody else is using.
Right. Right. So it does make it tempting to just stay put.
Exactly. But then on the other hand,
Yeah.
it does raise some questions about can other companies work with this?
Right.
How about potential limitations down the road? Because if Apple's AI features get so tied into this on-device processing,
Yeah.
it might be harder for other developers out there
Right.
to make apps and services that can play nicely with it.
It's like we're kind of on the edge of this whole new era of computing. And no one really knows like what the landscape is going to look like in a couple years.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we're not just geeking out about, specs on a sheet of paper.
Right.
We're talking about how this technology really does it shapes our lives, our choices.
Oh, yeah.
Even our relationship with, data privacy. It's huge.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But let's maybe try to distill this down. What are some key takeaways for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive? We've gone deep into this Apple ecosystem.
Yeah.
We talked about the seamless integration, those user-friendly features that everyone loves.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also talked about the potential downsides, like the lock-in,
Right.
The whole AI thing.
And as we've seen, it's not always cut and dry, black and white.
Right.
There are good arguments on both sides of this.
Right.
The convenience, the user experience, you can't deny it. It's really good.
Yeah.
But you do have to take a step back and think about the potential trade-offs.
Right.
Especially when it comes to what happens to my data.
Yeah.
How locked in am I really?
Yeah.
And is this hurting competition?
So what's the final thought here for our listeners who are trying to wrap their heads around all this? What do they need to keep in mind as they're navigating this tech landscape?
I think it really boils down to just taking some time to do your research.
Okay.
Think about what really matters to you.
Right.
What are your priorities?
Yeah.
But most importantly, just ask yourself what kind of digital life do I really want? What are my non-negotiables when it comes to, how easy it is to use? What's happening with my data? How much freedom do I want? And the answers to those questions, they're going to guide you to the tech ecosystem that really fits you best.
Those are some wise words to end on.
Oh, thank you.
And on that note, we will leave you to ponder those big questions. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, the most important tech decisions that you can make are the ones that put you on the driver's seat.